Hi, I'm Una. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my reading and channel and just like a little bit of my life goals for 2025. So I hope you'll stick around and join me. I had a big reading year in 2024. I was reading pretty obsessively at times and I had a really good time. But I don't think that that's sustainable for me or for anyone, especially not with hopefully some changes that might happen in my life. I think at least I'm trying to become a little bit busier in other areas of my life this year. So these are my goals for 2025. So my first goal is to read more sustainably in 2025. Like I said, I don't want reading to be my only hobby, but I also don't want to let it completely fall away. I love reading, I love books, I love the book clubs I'm in, I love the people I meet and connect to through reading, especially BookTube and all that. So I really want to find a rhythm for reading as well as other hobbies in my life. I don't want it to be like the only one that I do. This will probably mean reading a lot fewer audiobooks because there definitely are other things I want to listen to. There are podcasts that I've just like had on my list this year that I have not at all listened to. I want to watch more TV, I want to watch more movies. That's goal number one. My second goal, which I hope will be facilitated a little bit by my first goal, is to immerse myself deeper into books. I want to not have to worry about rushing or having to finish books, though, I mean, I still am doing book clubs, so there will be a little bit of that, but I just don't want that idea of like, I need to finish this book or thinking about what I'm going to read next, get into my enjoyment of a book or of its world. I want to really connect to characters and form attachments and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so invested in this series, I'm so invested in these characters, I'm so invested in what this author writes, and just like enjoy those feelings for longer. Connected to this, I want to like binge read more series, or maybe not necessarily binge, but just like continue in series more quickly if I'm liking it. I feel like this past year, I had a lot of feelings of like, I'd start a series because it was a book I'd wanted to try for a long time. And then even if I liked the book, I just feel like there were so many other books kind of on my agenda that I couldn't get to the next book in that series for a really long time. So I want to read more series. I want to read more sequels. I don't love binging a series. It can be kind of overwhelming to me, but I want to like at least read books in the series a little bit more consistently. And finally, in my like overarching goals, I want to DNF more books this year. I think I find it hard to DNF books because I often find I like part of a book or it's not that hard. I can just keep listening to the audiobook while I do other things, or the book isn't that long. But I just had a lot of like high 2 to low 3-star books that I just don't need to read. And I think also because I was doing a lot of like reading challenges and things, I wasn't counting DNF'd books as completing like the challenge because that's not how Storygraph counts it, but like I should. I think if you're like doing a reading challenge to read like 12 books with these different prompts and then one of them doesn't work out, I think it's really laborious to have to find a whole nother book that fits that prompt, hopefully that you already wanted to read, or if you didn't want to read it, like why are you reading it anyway? So anyway, it just becomes this whole cycle that just ends up being a lot more work, and I just want to DNF more books, and I've already started doing that. I think if I don't feel invested, if I'm not enjoying the writing or the world building, I can just DNF it and I can always go back later, you know? It's not legally binding. It's nothing too serious to DNF a book. So I really want to DNF more, especially those kind of like mid 3-star feeling books where I'm just like, it's whatever. That's what I want for this year. The other main things that I'm going to be doing this year, because I do feel like if I didn't give myself any structure or any goals, I would not feel that motivation to read. I'm just someone who's really motivated by deadlines and challenges and those kinds of things. So I don't want it to be a stressful kind of motivation, but I do want to feel motivated. So I'm doing a couple challenges of my own devising or that are very personal to me, and I'm really excited about those. So the first one is in no particular order. I'm doing 25 in 2025. So I picked out 25 books for myself, which sounds like a lot. Yeah, anyway, and these are going to be some of my top priorities. Generally, they're books that are more intimidating to me. They're books that I have put off reading last year because the idea was too overwhelming, and I just want to focus on these are my intimidating reads for the year. These are my chunkier reads or my classics or the ones that come highly recommended from close people in my life or from authors that I really loved that I feel that kind of intimidation around. And I want to try and read them, and I'm not gonna feel like I have to read all of them, but I'm gonna try and stick to this list. So some highlights from this list, I guess. I'm not gonna say all 25, but Dune and 1984 are on here as like sci-fi classics. Infinite Jest is a recommendation from my dad that I really want to read, and this one's really long, which is part of why it's on this list. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I Have Never Known Men. These are more like literary books that aren't super long, but I feel like are really well regarded, so they're a little bit intimidating. Some books by authors I've loved before: Warrior Girl Unearthed and Uprooted. Also, I want to read another Kurt Vonnegut, but I haven't quite decided which one. The Priory of the Orange Tree. This is highly recommended from a friend of mine and also very intimidating in the length. I also have some nonfiction. I want to read The Stuff of Thought by Steven Pinker, The Doctor Who Fooled the World, which is about Andrew Wakefield and the MMR vaccine, Imperial San Francisco. There's a lot of cool stuff on this list, and hopefully I will read them all by the end of the year. This is another challenge that somewhat overlaps with the last, but this is basically like a friend rec reading challenge. I haven't quite settled on how many. I was originally like 12 recs from 12 friends, but then I quickly came up with more than 12 people to ask for book recommendations, but I have secured some and I will go about securing more. But basically, I just wanted to ask a bunch of people in my life what one book they want me to read would be, and I'm going to try to read it within the next year. These include my parents, some really close friends, some of my family. I have an aunt and a cousin and my grandmother, or two of my grandmothers. But yeah, basically either these people had already recommended me books or I asked them once I came up with this idea. And generally these were books that I already wanted to read, that I knew that they had recommended me, or that they had expressed liking, or that they had physically given to me. Or even if they're like my aunt, who's great, we're Goodreads friends, and she reached out specifically after she read this book and I liked her review of it. So yeah, I'm excited about this project. Hopefully I will solidify the picks as the year swings on, but I'm really excited about some of these, and I'm really curious to see like whose pick I will like, or if I won't like anybody's. I'm nervous I don't want this to reflect poorly on our relationship or anything. I'm also going to, these are like a little bit more casual challenges that I'm going to do on Storygraph. One is about reading sequels, another about reading classics. There's one to keep up with my NetGalley releases, which is another thing I'd like to do. I have a couple random challenges on here just because I think that random things are really fun. And then some prompt-based challenges, one about reading more owned books. I want to try and do the Buzzword 2025 challenge because I did end up doing the one for last year. Finally, my last big thing is I did follow in the path of Win from Literary Diversions, and I made a bingo board from hell for 2025 for me personally. So my bingo board from hell I developed with my goals in mind of wanting to still challenge myself in some ways, but read less and not feel stressed out. The first square is 10 sci-fi books. Sci-fi is a genre that I kind of ran into some issues with. Not really issues, it consistently was intimidating me, or I couldn't get into it for a little while, and so I was kind of getting nervous about it. But I've read some really great sci-fi. I read at least 5 sci-fi books last year, most of which I really enjoyed. I have tons more I want to read, so I want to read 10 sci-fi books by the end of the year. I would like to finish 5 series. I finished 4 series last year. To be fair, 2 of those were rereads, but I hope with my series-oriented goal this year, wanting to continue more in series, this will be hopefully like a good stretch goal, but not completely unrealistic. I want to reread 10 books. Usually rereads are a lot of my reading. I've always loved rereading books. I'm not sure what the number was of rereads, but it was somewhere around 4% of my reading last year, so not a ton proportionally. I get so much joy out of rereading books, and so I wanted to make this a priority, an explicit priority in my reading, and to feel like those reads are really counting towards some goal, so I can like give myself just easy permission to reread as many books as I want. I would like to read 10 books that have been on my TBR since 2015 to 2017. I do have specific Storygraph challenges for all 3 of these years, so I know which books have been on my Goodreads TBR for that long, and I would like to prioritize some of those books. Some of those books are going to be easy, some of them are going to be maybe, I don't know, MDNS are definitely going to count for this. I don't think they're going to count for the other 3 they've already said, but definitely going to count for this. Because if a book has been on my TBR for 10 years and I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to force myself. I'd like to participate in 5 readathons this year. This feels like a good number. I think it's about as many as I did last year, and that I only started in March. I want these to be a combination of competitive team-based readathons, because I do really love those, but also some of the more chill readathons. So TBR-a-thon, which I am participating in January, is totally going to count for this. I think this is just a way to stay engaged with the kind of reading community online, which was such a big thing for me last year, and I hope it will be going forward. I would like to read 20 books from my series tracker. So I did make a series tracker a couple of days ago. It was a lot of fun. I followed a tutorial on YouTube, so I will link that down below of how to kind of format this series tracker, and it has cool stuff like a progress bar and things like that. So just 20 books in these series that I'm tracking, that I'm in the middle of. These will include rereads if they're like rereads that I have to, because I haven't read the first book in so long, to make this a little bit of a more manageable number for me. I'd like to read 10 books from my physical TBR. My physical TBR is like the last place I look for books to read, because borrowed books, which I have here, and library books right there, feel like they have a deadline, so I need to read them. I'm accountable to somebody for them, whereas when I own a book, it can just sit there and it's totally fine. But this number isn't huge because I do love getting books from the library. I love reading audiobooks, which I get from the library. I love borrowing books from friends and reading them. And I want to be able to focus on books that I feel really excited about. So my physical TBR books aren't always going to excite me. I don't have a huge physical TBR, but I do want to read 10 books from it. I like to read 24 nonfiction books. This is like my biggest number, and I had a challenge to read 12 nonfiction books last year, which I absolutely did. But I'm anticipating this being a larger proportion of my reading this year. I love nonfiction. I just finished reading The Five. Incredible book. I love nonfiction. It's my genre that has the highest percentage of 5 stars. Like, of the books I read last year, half of my nonfiction books were 5 stars. So I love nonfiction, and there's so many nonfiction books that I have wanted to read for a really long time that I haven't gotten around to, because I feel like it's easier for me to read fiction. I can read it more quickly. I can like sit down and just read the same fiction book for longer than I can nonfiction. But I really want to like read some of these books that I've just been looking at the titles of every time I go on Goodreads for like literally almost 10 years. So 24 nonfiction books. And finally, I want to read or DNF 10 Kindle books. I, like many people, am a victim of Stuff Your Kindle Day. I have so many books on my Kindle, many of which I'm very excited about, that just sit there because I can't see them. They're not gonna go anytime soon. It's like physical TBR, but worse. And so I'd like to read 10 of them, or DNF. But if I don't know that I don't think I can just DNF 10, because some of them are not gonna be good. But like at least half can definitely be DNFs. I'd like to read at least 5. That is my bingo board from hell. So again, we're just gonna see if we can get bingo. I'd love to get blackout bingo, but I'm gonna be okay if I don't. I'm trying not to have high expectations because I want to change and grow and do other things with my year as well. So thank you for following along. I hope this was interesting. Let me know if you have any specific plans for 2024 or 2025. I know some people are also planning on reading less and reading more slowly, like Leandra the TBR Zero and Brittany Loves Reading. Both of them were semi-inspiration for this, of course. When at Literary Diversions, she has her own goals, but thank you so much for the template and just for the videos in general. I would love to hear about your reading goals, if you think these goals are reasonable or not. I'm really excited by these goals, and I'm already really enjoying participating in like TBR-a-thon and the booktuber bingo and things like that this year. So I'm just trying to keep it at this healthy pace and make space in my life for other things as well, but still focusing on reading really good books and just having a good time with it. So thank you so much for watching. I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Bye!